Donald, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Education and Labour, Ms. Nima Flubeth, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture. Today's press statement will be read in three parts, and we will begin with a reading from our General Secretary.
Thank you, Shantika, and good morning, everyone. A Partnership for National Unity speaks directly to the people of Guyana at a moment of serious national concern. Our Constitution, the rule of law, and the integrity of public institutions are being steadily eroded and weakened under the PPP civic administration. These are not abstract issues. They affect the cost of living, the quality of public service, fairness of opportunity, and the future we will live for our children. Democracy does not defend itself. It depends on citizens who are informed, engaged, and willing to hold those in power accountable. With local government elections approaching, every citizen has a role to play in ensuring good representation. Rule of law matters for every citizen. The Constitution of Guyana requires a functioning parliament. When there is no function in parliament, the Constitution is breached and the entire society suffers. It is now more than 2 months after the first sitting of the Parliament on November 3, 2025, and there has been no parliamentary sitting since then. This weakens the people's voice in the Parliament and reduces scrutiny of government decisions. Democracy suffers when one side of the House and the nation are silent and large segments of our society are unrepresented. The circumstances surrounding the alleged retirement of Justice Yonette Cummins Edwards raises critical questions about government's respect for the judicial independence. This is contrary to Article 122A of the Constitution, which guarantees judicial independence. Courts must be free to act without fear or pressure. The executive branch must not interfere with the constitutional mandates governing the legislative branch. When the independence of judges is undermined, ordinary citizens loses the protection under the law. Municipalities in Georgetown, Linden, and New Amsterdam, and neighborhood democratic councils across Guyana are forced to operate without adequate funding. This undermines local democratic organs as protected for under Articles 71 to 78B of the Constitution. As a result, communities are forced to endure poor roads, flooding, rubbish buildup, and failing markets. Local government cannot serve the people if central government withholds resources and usurps their functions. Recently, a foreigner highlighted the issues of rubbish and poor maintenance in Georgetown environments. One video showed the drain behind the National Assembly in its unusually poor maintained state. It is foolhardy to expect municipalities to function effectively without proper funding and autonomy. With the bounty of oil resources Guyana has, the excuse of limited funds to cover the cost of basic maintenance grows weaker by the day, especially when infrastructure contracts must be frequently redone because of poor work and monitoring. This results in waste and a manifestation of incompetence. APNU estimates financial waste in infrastructure amongst the more than 30% of contract cost. Reports of senior Guyana police force rank having his US visa revoked by US law enforcement during international travel raised concerns about oversight and integrity in Guyana. News reports that some members of the Guyana police force are complicit with the illicit drug trade in Guyana are continuing concern for Guyanese. A professional police force is essential for public safety and trust. APNU requires that the police force be professional, independent, and autonomous in keeping with the Constitution, Articles 200 to 202. The Guyana Police Force must allow for all regulations and focus on delivering quality policing services for the benefit of all Guyanese. Sanction imposed by foreign governments on individuals linked to the PPP civic administration raise questions of effectiveness and oversight in government and effectiveness of local law enforcement. This signals a failure of local accountability systems and questions the basic purpose of regulations that govern office holders. Guyana should not rely on foreign government to police misdeeds within Guyana. All we need to do is to remove the encumbrances to constitutional reform and ensure the Constitution is modified to ensure there is transparency and accountability. It is deeply troubling that international patterns have had publicly remind the government to respect the Constitution of Guyana. This is a responsibility that devolves on all elected leaders. Sovereignty is self-governance, and it implies responsibility to all members of society. We are at risk of becoming a failed republic when other nations must issue cautions to us. Failed states are easy target in the drifting international landscape. It is not opportune for small states like us with regard to exercising our sovereignty. This collection of issues causes concern about the effectiveness of the rule of law in Guyana.
Thank you. MP Coretta McDonald.
A census that came too late. The preliminary census has been released 3 years later, which brings into question its integrity. Without prompt and accurate data, communities are miscounted, services are inadequate, and resources are poorly allocated. Every citizen deserves to be counted in a timely manner and represented appropriately. Against this backdrop of extreme late delivery of the preliminary census, it is a growing concern to the APNU that accuracy and its efficient and effective use may have already been compromised. We encourage the appropriate agencies to revamp and modernize to achieve timelines for all censuses. Corruption and everyday hardship. Serious allegations surrounding land allocations involving government officials Susan Rodriguez and Zulfikar Mustafa must be investigated. The lowest common approach with serious allegation would be an independent investigation. When corruption goes unchecked, honest citizens pay the price. The Guyanese society in general ends up being involved in irregular dealings to get basic government services. This is such a major issue that we now have a Ministry of Public Service, Government Efficiency and Implementation. This forces a simple question. How can repeated allegations of corruption by PPPC government officials not attract investigations? The answer is simple. The corrupt will not investigate for their fear of exposing themselves. News reports have been highlighting allegations about the rapid accumulation of wealth by government officials and their close relatives. What is glaring and has reached a breaking point is the fact that many of these allegations remain unaddressed. Transparency is not optional, it is a duty. Without it, who suffers? The people of Guyana. Across the country, the PPPC government initiated projects begin with fanfare, but are left incomplete or poorly built and are not adequately maintained. This is the constant reality of the PPPC government. They make beautiful launches, grand speeches, and all end with eventual disappearance to failed executions. The simple fact is that a project launch means nothing if it cannot be completed within budget, on time, and deliver the intended results. Communities deserve quality infrastructure, not photo opportunities or constant electioneering propaganda. One defining element of any respectable government is the ability to deliver the basics without failure. Prior, their excuse was inadequate funding. However, recently, the senior minister with responsibility for finance said the Natural Resource Fund boasts savings that are enough to pay off our external debt. The new paradigm means that there is inadequate funding to properly plan, execute, and maintain infrastructure. Despite talks of efficiency and reform, contract failures continue and no corruption allegations are pursued. Words mean little without action. Financial prudence and operational effectiveness are basic expectations of the citizens of Guyana and of the Constitution of Guyana. As representatives of the people, APNU will not allow for promises without accountability.
The Orange
MP Nima Fluber.
The orange economy. A hardship is witnessed by creatives in Guyana. The orange economy is an untapped element of economic growth, and this is a direct failure of the ability of the government to prioritize the economic well-being of all segments of our society. APNU in its Manifesto 2025 stated that we will introduce intellectual property laws inclusive of copyright laws to facilitate the monetization of skills for innovators. APNU has submitted a motion to the Parliament to give effect on this untapped economic opportunity. The Constitution places power in the hands of the people of Guyana. That power must be used. We implore you to raise the standard of governance, oversight, by asking tough questions of those in the PPPC government. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take questions on the press statement, of course, by the raise of hand and stating your media house. Mr. Dennis Chevron, I don't know if it's that you raising your hand.
Good morning, everyone. Dennis Chevron, Demon Airways. Does the APNU have any latest perspective on the failure of to call a meeting for the election of an opposition leader, and what recourse do you see the opposition having in this regard?
Thank you, Dennis. Look, the answer is simple. The answer to that question lies in the Constitution of our country. It requires the government to honor the Constitution to the letter and spirit. We need to ensure that we call the government to account. There is a requirement for calling of a sitting of the National Assembly with the opposition MPs in the presence of the Speaker, and an election should be done. So that is what has to happen. Failing which, the affected parties should take the recourse to the court.
Thank you.
When you say affected parties, to whom do you refer?
Well,
The opposition.
the opposition. The
Meaning
opposition.
combined opposition.
The combined opposition. The opposition, the combined opposition. One and the same.
The floor is still open for questions.
I guess it was clear.
All right, at this time I'll open the floor for any other questions. It doesn't have to be on the press statement.
A question to Ms. McDonald. Ms. McDonald, in light of the fact that there was no consultation with the opposition leader for the appointment of members of the Teaching Service Commission, what influenced the teachers' union's decision to have Mr. Baptiste return to be part of the commission under these circumstances?
The Ghana Teachers Union has a responsibility to its members, one. Two, the appointment of the Teaching Service Commission without consultation or meeting with the opposition leader is a case where at this time we have no opposition leader. And this is a direct ploy by the government to do a couple of things, just like the commission, the Teaching Service Commission. Of course, we do have an issue with that. But here is where the GTU finds itself in a very compromising position, where our members again stand to lose because for the last 3 years, there have been no appointment. What we did, we wrote questioning what was happening when our nominee said to us, it's not a new nominee, let me say that. The commission has been reconstituted, the same members are there. And so when our nominee informed us that he was written to, we cautioned and we highlighted the fact that all of these things are happening without an opposition leader being in place. But of course, you know what this government will do. As long as you object, then this government will throw the blame card onto the other party to say, well, teachers, you know what? Your union, they are not representing you. They don't want you to be promoted, and you would not have had promotions for the last 3 years. And here is it that they're stopping your promotion. And so that's the position that the union found itself in. And of course, Mr. Baptiste, he went ahead and he was there commissioned as a nominee of the Teaching Service Commission so that he can represent the interests of the teachers across Guyana.
Thank you. Mr. Antonio Day.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And persons present at the table. Ms. McDonald, I would like to ask, if you say if the Ghana Teachers Union intend to engage the government on the collective bargaining agreement, because I could remember that you had mentioned that when you were elected last year, that you intend to go back to the joint board. And secondly, you made a statement, I'm not sure if I'm reading correctly, you said that is accurate data regarding the census. Can you say what prompted you to make that statement? Thanks.
Well, the accuracy of the census, we have been waiting 3 years to have this census. And 3 years later means that it can't be accurate because what transpired the year before will not be the same thing this time around. And so this data that they're giving us, which should represent 3 years ago, is not accurate. And that's our reason for making this statement that was made this morning. With regards to the Ghana Teachers Union, yes, that statement was made, but you know what? It's very, very disgusting, to say the least, that the government, the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Education, who would have been written to on her appointment as Minister of Education, written to by the Guyana Teachers Union, congratulating her on her appointment and requesting to have an urgent meeting with her. To date, we have not received a response from the Minister of Education. The CEO was written to on several occasions. To date, we have not had a meeting with them. All we would have had is rescheduling of meeting dates. The PS was also written to reference the agreement that was signed in 2024. To date, we have not been able to meet with them. But you know what is strange? The ministry would write to the GTU requesting our presence when they have consultations, when they want something else to be done. But to deal with matters that are of interest to our teachers, they're not so inclined to do that. And this here is not about the ministry doesn't see the interest of teachers. What the ministry is seeing is personality, which we find very, very unprofessional. They're dealing with who is not a who is a representative here, who is a member of parliament, who is sitting at the regional level representing a political party. That's how petty they are. And this has we've got to have our people, we've got to have this nation call out the Ministry of Education, call out the government of Guyana on these matters that are of interest to the nation's teachers.
Thank you. Ms.
Ms. McDonald, just to follow up on a question. With respect to now that Mr. Baptiste is on the commission, now that you have he's back at the commission really, and the commission has been properly constituted, what will be the GTU's approach to one, having the backdating of appointments? Do you think that is a valid approach? And secondly, what will the teachers union through its representative and the commission seek to do in terms of having a compensation package for retired educators in between the time when there were no promotions, etc.?
One, the issue of backdated appointments, the GTU's position is at this time that we should have at least 2 promotions for 2026, which would compensate for the teachers who were not promoted over the last 3 years. Secondly, the GTU would have written the Minister of Education again, as well as the Teaching Service Commission, congratulating the Teaching Service Commission, first of all, on their new appointments and requesting to have a meeting with them. But I can say this to you, the Teaching Service Commission will not act until the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education meet, look at the vacancy list, ensure that it's seamless. Secondly, we agree on whether there are going to be changes in the criteria for promotion and have that document signed off and sent to the Teaching Service Commission. So the longer the ministry delay the meeting with the Guyana Teachers Union, it means that our teachers are going to be in jeopardy again. And many more teachers will retire, not being able to attain positions that they longed for. In terms of the remuneration package, that has got to be discussed at another level because the chief education officer nor the PS wouldn't be able to deal with that. And so we will have to write His Excellency. We did that before writing His Excellency, requesting to have a meeting with him. And we listed a series of issues that we wanted to discuss. That too has not been responded favorably.
That when you talk about a compensatory package for retired educators.
We're talking about 1, delayed promotions. We spoke about the agreement, and we spoke about regular meetings. Those were the issues that were sent to His Excellency.
And a last clarification, through Chair. In terms of the 2 appointments that you think should be made, how will that help the process? How will that be a benefit to the educators?
Well, with 2 appointments, 1, you'll have one somewhere during this first term, maybe when school closes for Easter, we'll have the promotions being done then, and when school reopens in September. And it's nothing strange. It was done already, so it's not something that we're just pulling out of the air.
And that will help with the backdating of appointments.
And that will help with the backdating of appointments, one, and two, it would assist with having more persons being appointed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Renee?
Hi, good morning. Renee Sandwich with Kaiser News. My question is in relation to the Region 10 chair and vice chair election, which was stalled since October 10th. Can you say what efforts have been made since then to possibly engage the REO, Mr. Dwight John?
I can say that the respected parties in Region 10 have been in contact with Mr. Dwight John. The constitutional requirement is for him to have that meeting, reconvene, and have the vote. Again, these matters rest solely with the direction from somewhere else. And it appears as if the government seems to be willing to have these kinds of situations exist because they benefit from these kinds of chaotic situation. And I can say that Region 10 is a similar situation exists in the municipality in Region 10, Linden, where you have town clerk usurping function of the council that we've been talking about, but nothing has been done. It shows a pattern of the PPP civic administration not respecting the rule of law. And I'm saying to the Guyanese people that we've had enough. We need to take the decisive action to deal with condemningly this government. And I'm hoping that when we call on you for support to get out on the street as needs be, you're with us, because at the end of the day, the eroding of the rule of law affects all of us. And we need to take and make decisive actions as citizens and hold this government accountable.
The floor is still open for questions. Mr. Antonio D.
Mr. McDonald, given that you are the representative on as related to matters pertaining to education, what are your concerns about the government's constant plans to develop the feeding program for students? But because I have received some complaints by some peers, whereas they're claiming that the breakfast program that the government has implemented is not viable as what is being postulated. Your thoughts? And lastly, you said that there has been no interest by the government because you had sent response to them regarding engagement on the collective bargaining agreement. What would be your recourse if this matter or if this approach by the government continues? Thank you.
Let me deal with the first one. With regards to the issue of the feeding program, the PPPC government, corruption is embedded in them. And so the feeding program is all about friends, favorites, and families. We have been talking about feeding program at another level, at the level of the national championship, where districts across this country gather for that event. And we have been highlighting the fact that we have many of our schools where home economics is being done. Why aren't we using those schools and those teachers to prepare the meals? We have the Carnegie School of Home Economics. Why aren't we giving the contract to them to prepare the meals? But you know what? When you go through these lines, you cannot have the kind of kickbacks. And so what they do, they outsource the catering. And so we have all kinds of nonsense happening right at the level of the National Track and Field Championship. And the same thing has been transferred into the school feeding program. You've seen reports all across this country, the condition of where they cook, the utensils that are being used, the kinds of meals that are being used. Nobody there is concerned about it. All persons are concerned about is the kickbacks that they get. We have spoken on several occasions about the feeding program. We've asked them, why not include Carnegie? Pull all of those stakeholders together, the persons who are providing the service, pull them together, ensure that they have the necessary requirements, first of all. Secondly, offer them a menu that would be all inclusive, which would include a balanced diet. That is not happening, and we're concerned about this because we're going to have many more of our learners, many more of our students, many more of our pupils ending up at the Georgetown Hospital or the New Amsterdam Hospital or the Lenora Hospital because of food poisoning. But again, the government does not care. They don't care. All they're interested in is how much kickbacks they can get. And so we have been encouraging parents while we are doing what we're supposed to do in terms of writing and advocating. We are encouraging parents to speak out against these issues when you have PTA meetings, to stand there and demand that the government does the feeding project better, the feeding program better. That you must be able to ensure that you, the PTA, be part and parcel of the planning of the menu that is going to be given, the menu that is going to be used to prepare the meals for your children. But like I said, this government is all about the kickbacks.
Thank you. I see the hand of Ms.
Oh.
Khadija.
The second question. I forgot the second question for you.
Sorry.
Ms. McDonald, my last question.
Yes. Just go me again. I was just saying I missed your second question.
All right, if I may, Ms. McDonald.
Go ahead.
Okay, if I may, I was asking, given that you would have highlighted the back and forth and the apparent the apparent disinterest by the government to not engage you on the collective bargaining agreement, what would, in your capacity
Okay.
as the Shadow Minister for Education, what would be your recourse?
All right. So what we have done just last week, we wrote the Minister of Labor highlighting all of the issues that we're having with the Ministry of Education, which is the way to go. We have been informing our members via our Facebook page. Every time we write to the Ministry of Education, we have been posting that on our page. And so our members now are fully aware of what is happening, and they are waiting there to hear the next move from us. But of course, there's a procedure that we have to follow, and we're going to follow that procedure. And depending on what happens, we will take the necessary action.
Thank you. Ms. Khadija?
Hi, good morning. Khadija Bach from Starboard News. I was wondering, for Mr. Benjamin specifically, as you can see, the speaker is currently traveling, and we're not sure what's happening as it relates to Parliament. I wanted to know whether there has been any conversation or any meeting or any planning to meet by the combined opposition to decide on the way forward.
I cannot say with any amount of definity that there is a plan to meet with the combined opposition. But this issue, as it relates to the election of the speaker, of the leader of the opposition, rests only and solely with the constitutional provisions that has not been honored by the government. It starts there. The combined opposition can meet, we can do all sorts of things. But if there is no meeting called by the Speaker of the National Assembly, and may I say this, whether the Speaker of the National Assembly is in Guyana or not, the Deputy Speaker can facilitate that meeting. So there is no reason to say that this meeting cannot be done because the Speaker has traveled. The question becomes whether we want to honor the Constitution of Guyana or not.
Thank you.
If I could just follow up on that.
Thank you.
The issue here is that the government is doing what they want to do. It's a whole lot of delaying tactics, and the government is just bent on delaying that process. The whole fact of having the National Assembly, the government has to be able to say it. So the Speaker of the National Assembly, we are ready to have a sitting. These are the issues that are going to be discussed on that day. And with that, the clerk would send the necessary information out to all members of Parliament, and then we'll have a sitting of Parliament. During that sitting of the National Assembly is when the Speaker will now summon a meeting of the opposition members and have that process completed. But here again, it's the government who's delaying the process, and I can say in collusion with the Speaker of the National Assembly. And we all know that this government, they don't like to account for anything. And so that's the process. That's the problem that we have.
Thank you. The floor.
For kindly please, have the APNU and WIMBE been talking about this issue with respect to taking any legal action?
He mentioned that just now.
No. No.
Why not?
We have not contemplated that, but it doesn't mean that that action will not be taken. We want to explore this to the natural end. We're hoping that good sense prevail on the part of the government, and failing which, then a decision will have to be made. But at this moment, we're allowing the government to make and take the decisions that supposed to be for good governance. And may I say, this is a government that boasts about democracy. And they, by their actions, are evading democracy. Democracy is not about an elections. Democracy kicks in with what happens after the elections: respect for the rule of law, good governance, accountability, transparency, actions being done in that light. And to date, we are not seeing that kind of action from the government. It is this government during the elections campaign that promised us immediately after they be elected that corruption will be a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm.
We have repeatedly after the elections point out to the Guyanese people and the government about droves of corrupt activity. We spoke about corruption with Zulfikar Mustafa. We spoke about corruption with the allocation of house lots, and to date, to the insult and embarrassment of all of us Guyanese, this government, the president says he has accepted an explanation from a minister about our wealth, rather than in any democracy, the government will ask the minister to step aside to allow for a fair, independent, impartial investigation. That does not happen. We in the PNC has a proud history of doing that. We've had allegations made against a son of a minister, and that minister step aside
Without even being asked. Mm-hmm.
Our former leader step aside to allow for an investigation. But this government that speaks about democracy only sees democracy when they win elections. They do not respect democracy. They do not respect our constitution. And I'm saying this matter goes to that. The root of the issue here is respect for our constitution and the rule of law.
Thank you. That's it. The floor is still open for another question. Mr. Antonio Day.
Thank you. A follow-up, Ms. Nino Su, good morning to you. You made mention of the motion or a tabled motion for intellectual property. Do you wish to provide more insight on that? And Mr. Benjamin, given that you are the General Secretary of the party and you come from a legal background, do you think that given that the government continues to not convene a meeting as in stated in the Constitution for the appointment of a opposition leader by non-governmental members, do you foresee that this matter is going to court? Thank you. That's all from me.
All right. I will provide a copy of the motion just after the presser. Basically, I'll just read the last few lines for you to get an idea. We're asking for a special select committee to be established in the Parliament that will review the existing copyright laws and identify specific gaps concerning digital rights and enforcement. We are asking for consultation with the relevant stakeholders across the creative industry to ensure that their needs are reflected in a new legal framework. And we are asking for a draft of a modernized copyright bill to be presented in the National Assembly for debate within 6 months. I will make this available after the person.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I believe that at some point in time, as I've said, if this matter is not addressed, there is a likelihood that we will have to go to court to compel the Speaker of the National Assembly to do what has to be done. Mind you, there is the operation of Article 65, which says that the Parliament can regulate its own procedure. But in that stead, they're doing so for the peace, order, and good governance of Guyana. And Guyana cannot be in order and exercise peace if a constitutional office is vacant. And therefore, the courts will now have to act independently of the executive and compel the Speaker to do what is right so that the Constitution can be respected.
Thank you.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, with there being no other questions,
I have two questions, please.
go ahead, Mr. Shabbat.
Mr. General Secretary, can you say when will the PNC be holding its first General Council, and when will the Alberton Group be holding its first meeting?
Well, I can say that General Council is on the agenda within the first quarter of 2026. I cannot say anything about an Alberton Group. Groups are supposed to meet on a regular basis, at least monthly as per Constitution. If the Alberton Group is not meeting, I would not know. I will have to look at what is happening with that group through the Georgetown district and would be able to pronounce on that. But I know within the first quarter of 2026, the PNCR will be holding its General Council.
But shouldn't the Georgetown umbrella be reporting directly to you about the meeting of groups?
Yeah, of course.
And have they reported whether indeed the Alberton Group has met for the first time or not?
That's internal business. That's the internal business.
Now, Dennis, to be fair to Georgetown District, we've just come out of an elections. We're doing a number of things. We're doing walkabouts, outreach activities. We're engaging people. We're trying to re-engage our grassroots supporters. We're doing work. And for me as General Secretary, we're doing what we're supposed to do as regards engaging our membership and supporters.
All right.
I don't understand the fixation on a particular group. This party has in excess of 200 groups. What is the fixation on this one group?
But let him know that Alberton
Well, aren't
is always
groups
been
supposed
part
to be
of
meeting to
our
the
walkabouts. So tell him that Alberton is part of the walkabouts.
I didn't get the question.
No, I'm asking whether groups are supposed to meet and basically take decisions on new members.
Yes, they are. And look, in the month of February, March, groups will be meeting to have elections of office bearers. So I suspect that will happen sooner rather than later. But in the absence of any specifics, I know that we're doing a lot of work throughout the country through our outreach activity, which is scheduled, by the way. So I will be able to on in on a specific, if I am giving the amount of time to talk to, I'll be able to give you the specifics in respect of the Alberton group.
If the Alberton group has not met, then how come Dr. Campbell has become a member of the party? Shouldn't it first come through the group?
Now, Dennis, there is a number of ways one can become a member of the party. The Office of the General Secretary exercises the right to have persons be member of this party. And I don't understand why we are now making an issue on whether Dr. Campbell is a member or not a member. Look, the man has worked with the Partnership for National Unity, and he is elected on a Partnership for National Unity slate. It is a decision of the Partnership of National Unity for National Unity to have him lead their members of parliament at the National Assembly, and that is the decision that we will take. Whether he's a member of the PNC, an ordinary member or not, he represented a collective, and that collective is the Partnership for National Unity, which contested the 2025 elections.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
No further questions.
All right. Given there are no other questions, I want to thank our media personnel for joining today's press conference, and of course, our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. We do hope that you have a wonderful weekend.